Good morning.
Morning.
How are you? Can you tell I was in Mexico last week?
I was like, look at you learning the salsa.
Uh-huh. How are you? Good?
I'm good. How's
Everybody
everybody
have a
else
great
doing?
holiday weekend, I trust.
Yeah, the Easter Bunny.
Uh-huh. Well, the when the holiday weekend happens, it tends to disrupt the numbers a little bit, but let's fact check, right? Let's jump in and look here. We've got all right. Fulton County active status changes 570, really strong for on the listing side. 144 went under contract last week. So that's more than the week before, which is interesting knowing it was a holiday weekend. And we had kind of two lower weeks. So 144 was a nice bounce back. 279 pending, and we had 249 close out in the last 7 days. Outside of this week back early March, 249 was a really solid week for closings. Granted, it's end of month closings, and I want to point out a couple things. One is end of month expired, end of quarter expired is not as high as I had anticipated it to be, which tells me that maybe our listings are selling. The other thing that I will point out is the global conflict going on in Iran is now over 30 days from when it started. So, two thoughts. One is most contracts, I would say probably 90% of contracts are written within a 30-day close.
Mhm.
So, the properties going under contract now obviously are written post Iran invasion. Um, and the closings that are happening now were written at the start of the Iran invasion. So certainly numbers going forward are all going to be what happened to the real estate market post Iran, right? And uh, are the numbers getting disrupted that much? I don't know my answer to that. I don't think they're getting disrupted as much as I had anticipated they would be. I think they're getting disrupted a little, but let's dive a little deeper. All right. So there's Fulton County, DeKalb County. Click, click. 331 active listing status changes. So really strong number there as well. We had 71 go under contract, which is down from the week before. Probably a little bit down over the last quite a few weeks, but not crazy down, just slightly down. There's 159 pending, and they had 144 close out in the last 7 days. So there was a 191 and a 163 back early March, which was probably a result of the lower interest rate environment we were in. But 144 is very strong for DeKalb County. They had 112 expired listings at the end of the month, end of the quarter. In Cobb County, we had 343 active status changes. 90 went under contract, which is down 10%, but nothing crazy. There's 197 currently pending and 180 closed in the last 7 days with 72 expired listings. Jason, what do you make of these numbers?
I think it's a solid month. I agree with the, 30-day close. So what does that look like 30 days from now? The one thing that really popped out to me looking at these numbers are the coming soon numbers.
Okay, so we got 56 coming soons in Cobb. We've got 23 coming soons in DeKalb, and in Fulton, there's 60 coming soons. Tell me what you mean and what you see.
I think that with the Zillow partnership and things like that, and all the other brokerages signing on with someone for a coming soon, you know, program, I I'm starting to see more agents use coming soon. Also, it's a great strategy to do if your sellers are going on spring break or your buyers are going on spring break. So put it out there as coming soon so that when everybody comes back next week, I expect to see a little bit of a pop in actives and also in under contracts.
Got it. Okay. Well, our mortgage rate environment is at 6.45. And I highlighted it here. I want to remind you, we pull these rates on Monday morning, but this is the close of the market on Friday at 4 p.m. So this is what the rate was at the end of business Friday. And it was 6.45. The magic number that we keep watching is 6.64. And the data says as long as the rates are below 6.64, buyer demand has is a foot on the gas pedal. If it goes above 6.64, they start to pull their foot off the gas pedal. So right now, while I wish they were 6.45 is still a good rate for the spring market. And we're pushing forward in that regard right now. Um, but let's jump in. I want to talk about quite a few things today. So let's hit this first. There's an article on Housing Wire that's titled "How is the housing market weathering wartime economics?" And the subheadline says higher rates have taken a small bite out of the housing demand recently. I think the catchphrase here is small bite. I don't think it's disrupted it drastically, but it's certainly slowed it down just ever so slightly. So weekly pending sales have slipped, blah, blah, blah. Here's the big talking point. It says wartime economics have, of course, sent gas prices skyrocketing, but have also pushed mortgage rates higher over the last 5 weeks. From a low of 5.99, we got excited for a hot minute, and then they have gotten as high as 6.64, which is that magic number, but we're at 6.45 today. But they've fallen a bit recently, and higher rates have slowed some of the housing data down. In the past, mortgage rates above 7% would have dampened the data, but we still haven't broken above the magic 6.64 in 2026. Let's take a look. So I'm going to stop there. What do you hear in that?
I hear it's kind of like justifying the status quo. Um, One thing I think that has pushed the demand that we've seen so far this year is that buyers that have been sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting for that 3% interest rate is finally come to terms with the fact that they're not going to see a 3% interest rate. And they're moving because now they have to. 6 months ago, a year ago, they were moving because they wanted to. Now I think people are moving because they have to. And they're just dealing with it. Also they've now it's the new normal because when we talk about year over year, it's not this dramatic, change in interest rates. They've been where they roughly where they are for a year now. So I think that buyers are just finally coming to terms with this is what it is, and they're pulling the trigger because they have to now.
Okay. I'm curious, somebody on the call, what are you hearing? What are you feeling? What do you think? Michelle, you raising your hand?
Absolutely. To Jason's point, statistically speaking, we have not moved more than half a percentage in mortgage rates in the last 6 months up or down. So I think, consistently speaking, to that 6.64 magic number, I don't think we're going to achieve that unless something really catastrophic happens.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
I think that, again, to Jason's point, buyers and sellers are coming to the realization that we are not going to see these magic 3% numbers again, and it's settling in because that 3% was an artificial number, basically to stimulate the economy during COVID. Historically speaking, rates have been between 6 and 7% for decades, and that's considered normal. So it's really reframing mindset and people getting used to it.
I agree.
But I feel like we're there. I don't know. I don't hear anybody talking about waiting on the rates to drop to 3 or 4. So at this point, it's about the right house at the right time and framing it properly, realizing that, an interest rate isn't a permanent commitment either. And it's really motivation comes down to lifestyle and experience and the long-term horizon. And that's it. That's where as realtors, we really bring great value in recognizing that best time to buy real estate's right now or any time in the past. And a 6% or 6.5% rate is historically below average. I mean, my first house was at 8 and change, and I thought I'd stolen the rate because it dipped right before my closing, and I got, a float down right at 8.
It's all perspective, right?
100%. And
Yep.
yep, perspective. And it's our job to frame that and help them realize it. And I think consumers do now around rate.
I agree. All right. I mean, are you filling up your gas cans less now because the gas prices are higher?
Yes.
Okay. I think most people are still filling up the same cadence that they normally are because they're still driving the same amount that they normally are. Um, but I don't think maybe they're a little more cautious with gas, but I don't think as the consumer habits have changed that much because gas prices have gone up. I think the interest rates have gone up ever so slightly, and it's not drastically affecting the consumer habit at this moment in time. If it goes up over 6.64, I think it will. Um, but I don't believe that it's drastically affecting the consumer habit. And, if we look at our data, three of the counties, they had big properties going under contract in the last 7 days. So I could almost fact check what I'm saying with the data there, but let's keep going. So this is a graph that shows single family pending home sales in the country. And the black line on the left is 2026. So what I find interesting about this line is we're ahead of 24 and 25 in pending home sales they're tracking in the country right now. Now, granted, real estate's a hyper local and we could get more specific into our local market, but just from a talking point, man, in the country, there's more homes pending right now than there were at this point in time in the last 2 years. And that's with the global economic stuff going on. If you go down to the next graph, it's all properties. So includes townhomes, condos, all that stuff. It's the same story. The black line is outpacing the last 2 years in pending home sales. So I find that a little cautiously optimistic. I don't know that we're going to stay there, but as of right now, we're ahead of what the last 2 years were just in pending home sales. Now, this third graph I find also interesting, which is mortgage purchase applications. So there certainly was a big spike in 2026, the black line early in the year, and then it tapered down and we went back up. And then it certainly has come down since the Iran conflict started over 30 days ago. However, what I find fascinating is we're still ever so slightly more in mortgage purchase applications at the beginning of April than we were at this time last year. And I find some optimism in all three of those charts, but I'm curious what y'all think.
I agree. And I predict, because I think half the country's on spring break this week, I predict that we're going to see a spike in the next week for mortgage applications again for those people that are moving because they have to at the end of the year when the kids get out of school. So I think we're going to see another spike in the applications. Also, it was about a year ago that we announced tariffs on the entire world. Um, so I think we're going to also see some year over year growth because of that.
Yep. Anybody else have thoughts? Do you feel the cautiously optimistic when we show these? I think you should. I think there's a cautious optimism in the marketplace right now. A lot of it has to do with, and there's political pressure to end the conflict globally sooner than later. If it ends sooner than later, I might go on record and say we could have a late surge in housing in 2026 if the conflict were to resolve itself sooner than later. If it extends itself longer than what most people anticipate, um, it could just make us have more of a normalized year. But regardless, I still feel cautiously optimistic that we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Um, Now I am going to make fun, and forgive me for making fun. And I have certainly been on this call many times talking about how I've put my foot in my mouth from something I said at the beginning of the year that didn't transpose by the end of the year, which every economic prediction has that risk. But Lawrence Yun with NAR came out at the beginning of the year and said we were going to sell 14% more transactions in 26 than we were in 2025. And I even thought he was crazy when he said it. Well, he's now backing down from 14% more transactions in 2025. He's not predicting how many more, but there's still a prediction of most economists that we will sell more houses in 26 than we did in 2025, in spite of everything going on. So hang with us. The market may, the media may, your colleague sitting in the office next to you may have negative thoughts or feelings, but I'm here to tell you and show you it's not as doom and gloom as maybe some of the media or your colleagues might be saying in the marketplace. There's actually some cautious optimism a lot of places. Somebody make a comment so I don't act like I'm crazy.
No, you're not crazy because well, I mean, you're a little crazy, but we all are. I mean, it's what makes the world fun. What I thought was interesting was when he said 14%, that was a revision from what he had said 3 or 4 months earlier from that.
Yeah.
Because originally he was like 3%, I think it was, or 3 or 4%. And then at the beginning of the year, he's like, oh no, they jumped it to 14%. I was like, okay, I don't see that happening.
Well, at one point in time when the rates got below 6 so fast at the beginning of the year, we were starting to feel like, hey, put on the seatbelt. This thing's about to get wild and crazy. And then we had the Iran conflict. So we take it with what was given, what we're given, right? We'll move on.
Right.
All right. Where are we at now? The other thing that came out positive is at the end of March, the jobs report came in, and there was 178,000 payroll jobs added first quarter. So the job market got better. Unemployment held. Now, granted, we saw unemployment in the 3.5 range, but the US government deems anything under 6% healthy unemployment. So if it's stable at 4.3, then there's not this motivation by the US government to do any monetary policy changing right now. Inflation's under control. Unemployment seems to be stable. Ironically, jobs increased. So, on one hand, there's some economic factors that are actually saying the economy is getting a little bit better, which is weird because it doesn't feel that way to most Americans. But if jobs are better, unemployment's holding, those are two factors in how the government looks at economic stability. Um, and it's important to us in real estate because you got to have a job to buy and sell real estate, right? So as long as unemployment's holding stable, that is a positive factor to the real estate industry. Make sense?
Yep.
All right, let's get into this crazy conversation. Home search is going AI first with realtor.com as attention gets harder to earn. And it says how platforms are adapting to where buyers go first and what actually stops the scroll. Um, Platforms are adjusting to both. And at the same time, attention's getting harder to earn unless something actually feels worth stopping for. Platforms are adjusting to both. Here's what I'm thinking about and reading about. So the consumer, uh, let me read this first. It says the way people find things and decide what matters is starting to shift in a pretty noticeable way. Early discovery is happening in places it didn't before, not on a listing site or even a brand's page, but inside a question someone typed into a chatbot. We've been talking about this for about a year and a half, right? However, what I'm observing is the Zillows of the world, the Realtor.coms of the world, the Homes.com of the world are starting to pump some serious cash into playing the AI get found game. And we as real estate professionals should pay attention, one, and also be probably playing the same game ourselves. And if we're not leaned in to this AI conversation, uh, the power is going to land in the aggregators and not in our hands. And we need to make sure that we're also building AI content. So, what does that mean? That's a very complex formula. What I'm challenging all our offices to do is to have an AI mastermind every month on the calendar, not a class, but this just the agents, the professional agents that want to get together and mastermind and talk about products and tools and how we're doing it and learn and grow together would be very powerful. But all that to say, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts?
I think the analogy in the article about looking up a recipe versus looking up a product is something that, like, for me, it made it hit for me as well. You know, the when you're looking for something specific, that's when you're shopping. So are we putting out the product to
Mm-hmm.
grab people's attention? So yeah, I thought that was really cool. Um I mean, I think if anybody was going to be using AI to look for a home, they probably would have already started doing it using ChatGPT or Gemini.
Yeah. Jason, you raise your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand. So if they're using AI, isn't AI like they're asking, I need to find a home in Marietta near Marietta High School, and it tells them the communities, and then it kind of leads them to what, like Zillow or Redfin? Is that how it goes?
Well, here, I'll just do a quick search. So if you're on ChatGPT, and I could say, am a high net worth individual looking for five recommended real estate agents to help me sell my house in Chastain Park in Atlanta, Georgia. Can you help me? So they may go something like this, right? Like they describe what they're who they are and they ask it a question. Then the question is, how do you get found here? Well, here's the game. It's
Yep.
not so much who you're not in the list. The question is, what are these little gray bars that AI is sourcing to put people in the list? So the AI sourced this guy's website, sourced her website. This was sourced off Zillow. So this is where Zillow is putting money to make sure they're being sourced. Personal website, realtor.com. Uh, realtor.com is showing up here. Zillow is showing up here. But there are also people's personal websites that are getting sourced. So it's not just realtor.com and Zillow, it's also uh, websites, YouTube, the whole nine yards, right? So if you go to Gemini and ask the same question, why didn't it open?
Brett, while you're working on that, here's an
Yeah.
idea that just occurred to me. If you did a search using AI and it produced results that you're not on, why wouldn't you take those results and feed them into AI and ask them what they're doing that gave them a unique advantage that you could emulate? And then model things that are working. Use the language, use the links, use there's it's rocket science until it breaks it down and then you're like, "Oh,
I mean, it's kind of the SEO of tomorrow.
well, I just took your job data information and I spit it into chat and said, where did this growth come from? And when it talked about job growth just a minute ago, and it took me 10 seconds to quantify and get clear on why that happened. And there's three key sectors that drove that job growth from, and it was also, by the way, and I didn't know this, they didn't say it in the article, but it said the job boost or boom in March was reflective of a really bad February where 130,000 perceived jobs were lost. So it's information is only good when there's a layer of reflected comparison. Without that comparison, it's just data and numbers. Everything's great, but is it great because the last data point was not great? So all I'm saying is ask better questions and go three deep and keep
Yeah.
asking questions until it's so granular that it becomes actionable and you can do something with it proactive and productively.
Hey Brett, I know this on this call it's a little rough because I know we're limited with time, but I just wanted to double down on what you said. Actually, it's what I've been doing. And I will say it's hard to find a class that is going to fit all because there are so many different levels of where people are with AI and chat. But if you can find like-minded people, whether it's your office or others that you see doing it right, go ahead and do it because I'm telling you, I'm learning so much. Jason, to your question, there are so many levels of that of actually being able to manipulate this the way you want to see results, thanks to Reddit and things like that.
Yep.
So, I mean, it can be a really like 2 hour hard dive going into it, but there's so much here. I mean, the way that I'm approaching sales has changed because of AI and the clients that are coming at me now. And again, whole different convo. Maybe we can do it another time. But if you want more on that, reach out to me. It's wild.
There you go.
Thanks, Manny.
This is why I think every office should have an AI mastermind going on every single month, not a class. Just you guys need to get into a room and work on this stuff together.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's not a class. It's a hey, I'm trying to learn this stuff side by side. Got it?
Can I add one more layer? Be careful assuming that AI always gives the proper or most correct answer. follow the money. There are a handful of players in this game that have a long game to recover 60 billion in money pumped into this new, it's like the race to beat Coke and Pepsi. Somebody's going to win out over time, and just realize it's not always altruistic and to your advantage. And our consumers need to know fact from fiction, and you're the human element to help them interpret that data and make sure that you're on the front line communication wise so that when they get information, they think to call you first to vet that information as fact.
There you go. So anyway, there's your weekly update, guys. Happy Monday. I hope everybody gets rested. Go make some money.
Connect with 20 people in conversations that matter.
There
This
you
is
go.
the day.
Bye.
Bye.